Hey, you probably know that in most romance anime, they tell us that if you wait long enough, misunderstandings will eventually clear up, feelings will align, and that love will eventually work itself out. That's a big, fat lie. And I've learned it the hard way. But Oregairu doesn't believe in this kind of romance. Instead, it asks a more serious question. What if the biggest obstacle to love is the version of yourself you use to avoid being hurt? Oregairu isn't about falling in love. It's about the brutal, exhausting process of stripping away your own defenses. It's about being genuine to yourself even when it tears you apart. And Oregairu builds this idea quietly over time. There are no grand gestures meant to fix everything in the moment. Instead, the show makes our characters have uncomfortable conversations about the masks they wear. And at the center of it all is the service club, a place where they have to solve other people's problems. But as the series goes on, it becomes clear that the club isn't about helping people. It is a place where Hachiman, Yukino, and Yui slowly realize that the way they deal with people is shaped by the lie they tell to themselves. They are not just solving requests, they are deconstructing each other's personas. Hachiman is introduced as someone who thinks he has everything figured out. He thinks that every form of social interaction is fake and that he doesn't need anybody. And that's because he chose the role where he can never be hurt, the role of the villain. Whenever the service club takes a request, Hachiman's solutions always work, and that's because he sacrifices himself. He feels like he was never meant to be praised anyway, so he's okay with taking the role of the bad guy. At first, this seems like maturity, or maybe a dark kind of heroism, but it's not even close. Hachiman is the living embodiment of the hedgehog's dilemma. It's a philosophical metaphor describing a situation where a group of hedgehogs want to move close to one another for warmth, but they can't because they'll prick each other with their spines. So the hedgehog decides to stay out in the cold. That's Hachiman. He convinces himself that being hated hurts less than being vulnerable. If people dislike him, at least it confirms what he already believes, and that makes him think that his way of dealing with things is right. But as the series progresses, Hachiman is forced to confront a painful truth. His cynicism isn't wisdom, it's fear, dressed up as intelligence. He attacks the superficiality of high school not because he is above it, but because he is terrified of the rejection that comes with participating in it. And that fear is exactly what ties him to Yukino and slowly distances him from Yui. Yukino is introduced as the opposite of Hachiman, calm, intelligent, composed, but emotionally they are remarkably similar. Yukino believes that relying on others is a weakness. Much of this thinking came from her mother, and especially from the shadow that her older sister cast on her. Yukino grows up believing that to need someone is to fall behind, so she builds walls. Not because she doesn't care, but because she cares too much. Where Hachiman avoids pain by becoming disposable, Yukino avoids it by becoming untouchable. She creates an ideal version of herself, a perfect, independent entity. But this is just another trap. In philosophy, we often talk about the difference between autonomy and isolation. Yukino confuses the two. She refuses help, refuses shortcuts, refuses emotional dependence. But this leaves her isolated, trapped in a version of herself that looks strong but feels hollow. What makes her relationship with Hachiman so compelling is that they understand each other's pain. They see through the social game. Yukino's growth begins when she realizes that independence without connection isn't strength, it's loneliness, and that wanting someone doesn't erase her identity, it completes it. Choosing Hachiman isn't about being saved, it's about finally allowing herself to want something. Then there's Yui, the heart of the trio. She's warm, expressive, and kind. Unlike Hachiman and Yukino, Yui understands people intuitively. She feels the tension in the room before anyone even speaks. In Japanese culture, this is called reading the air. It's the ability to maintain social harmony, and that's exactly her problem. She sees the relationship that's forming between Hachiman and Yukino way before they even acknowledge it themselves. But instead of confronting it, she chooses kindness, at the cost of her own happiness. Yui believes that if she's patient enough, things will eventually work out, that harmony is worth preserving, even if it means ignoring her own pain. This brings up a paradox. Is it better to maintain the happiness of the group, even if it means living a lie? Yui tries to freeze time. She wants the now to last forever, because she knows that moving forward means that someone gets hurt. She is not just lying to others, she is lying to herself. Her arc isn't about rejection, it's about learning that love without honesty becomes self-erasure. And when she finally lets go, it isn't weakness, it's growth. She chooses to respect the truth even if it hurts. These three aren't just a love triangle, they form a philosophical conflict. Hachiman represents self-sacrifice, Yukino represents self-reliance, and Yui represents self-denial, and Oregairu argues that none of these three are forms of love. This leads to the most famous scene in the show, Hachiman's request for something genuine. When Hachiman asks for something genuine, he isn't asking for romance. He is asking for the ability to struggle, to conflict, and to understand someone else completely, even if it's ugly. He is rejecting the nice atmosphere that Yui protects. He is rejecting the solitude that Yukino protects. He is asking for a connection that doesn't require a mask. And this is where the show hits hard for anyone who has ever tried to make a relationship work. When we look at how relationships fail in real life, it's rarely because of a dramatic betrayal. It happens in the quiet moments when we choose comfort over truth. We often realize usually too late, that we aren't honest with ourselves. We tell ourselves that we are happy, but in reality, those are just lies we keep repeating over the years because they are easier than facing the truth. We often believe that we don't need anyone, or that we need someone so badly we'll suppress who we are just to keep them. We mistake independence for strength, only to learn that no one can truly carry everything alone. Or like Hachiman, we play the villain in our own stories. During arguments, we convince ourselves that taking the blame is the noble thing to do, that if we just observe the negativity, the relationship will survive. But it isn't fine. It's just another way of avoiding what actually needs to be said. And what hurts the most is how much we all eventually see ourselves in Yui. We prioritize harmony over honesty. Even when we know something is wrong, we stay quiet, believing that time will fix it. But time doesn't fix lies. It solidifies them. Oregairu exposes the fact that being nice isn't the same as being good or loving. Sometimes, to truly love someone, you have to risk breaking the relationship by speaking the truth. Rewatching Oregairu now feels completely different than it did when I was younger. Back then, it was a story I understood. Now, it's a story that I've lived. Oregairu doesn't teach you how to win at love. It teaches you what happens when you stop lying to yourself. Hachiman, Yukino, and Yui don't grow because they get what they want. They grow because they finally admit what they really want and what the cost of it is. That's why this story feels different when you come back to it later in life, because at some point, it stops being a romance you watch and starts being a mirror. And if there's one thing Oregairu leaves us with, is this. Being genuine doesn't guarantee happiness, but it's the only way love was ever real.